unwritten rules of Facebook.
It cut all of our ad costs by over 70%.
How do you want to be able to take in all of this data that's around us?
Some of his campaigns have done up to $20 million in sales.
I think this is going to be the future for the next 10 years.
And now here is The Win with your hostess, serial entrepreneur, marketeer, and chief sexy boss, Heather Havenwood.
Look, our whole world revolves around our iPhone, iPad, Droid. You know, they say we look at our phones on average 150 times a day. And if you're a small business and want to actually grow, you need to reach people where they're looking at and listening the most, their smartphones. See, marketing via text messaging is a great way to start, and it's super easy. Just text the word START to 72,000 to learn more about my friends at Mobit. They're marketing experts, and they will show you how to use text messaging for your business and to get more leads and convert them amazingly. Again, text the word START to 72,000. Again, that's text the word START, S-T-A-R-T, to 72,000. Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Win with Heather Havenwood. Thanks for being here. You know, this podcast is about entrepreneurs in the real world, okay? So it's about winning and actually learning to win as an entrepreneur. Because I know for myself, I have failed a ton of times as an entrepreneur, and so I wish I had this podcast like 10 years ago to listen to. So that is why I created this show, everyone. So check it out. Welcome to The Win with Heather Havenwood. And today I have a really bad A. I don't have explicit right on my iTunes. I can't say ass, but bad A. Oh, I did already. Oops. Bad A on the phone. Chris Mercer, are you on the line with me?
I am here.
Okay, so what's interesting about Mercer, okay, by the way, his name is Mercer. Okay, his name is Chris Mercer, but just let you know, I call him Mercer. Everyone calls him Mercer.
There's always another Chris in the room, right? So Mercer's easier.
Like, boring, so Mercer. And what's really funny when I've known you for how long? 4 or 5 years at this point?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Like that. I thought your name was Mercer. Like, it was Mercer.
That's how you know it's working.
Right, it is. Like, it's
all about the brand.
Branding. It's a great brand. So I've known Chris for a long time through the Internet Marketing Party here in Austin, Texas. If you ever in Austin, come check us out. It's third Thursday of the month, I think. It just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, check out internetmarketingparty.com has the details of it.
Yeah, go check it out. And there's always people flying in from all over the world or wherever, like just, hey, I'm hanging out. And they're entrepreneurs, and we hang out, and we have a cocktail, and we always listen to someone really amazing person that David Gonzalez puts together. That's how I know Mercer, so let you know. But I'm telling you who he really is. He typically goes by Mercer. He's a co-owner of Seriously Simple Marketing. He's He's a highly sought after analytics and conversion expert that specializes in helping top digital marketers track, split test, and optimize their existing sales funnels to improve bottom line revenue. Okay, what the heck did I just say? What did I just say? Explain that in like kindergarten terms.
So let's translate that. So yeah, basically what we'll do is for online entrepreneurs, we'll go to their websites. We'll help them set up the tracking on their website so they can see all the different pages that are being viewed and the buttons that are being clicked and what their opt-in rates are and all that fun stuff. And then once you sort of have all of your measurements and you know what your opt-in rates are and who's going from page 1 to page 2 and how they're working through the funnel, then we'll actually go through and work on optimizing that, which essentially is just, okay, if you've got a 30% conversion rate, how do we get that to a 35% or a 40% conversion rate and just sort of optimize the results?
Awesome. Okay, that makes sense. So guys, basically what they do is people come to your website like a store and they help you convert it and make it more money. Is that better?
That's exactly right. Okay, I love that. Simplicity.
Simplicity. And I have to say, so what Mercer is really good at, what you're great at, Mercer, is that you are an amazing teacher. I've told you this before. I think you're so great because you taught me, Google Tag Manager, something it's really designed for the geek. It doesn't really make logical sense. It doesn't, I don't think. Now I get it, but it doesn't make logical sense. You don't walk in Google Analytics or Google Tag Manager like it all, oh, this makes sense. It doesn't. It's like a particular way to think. And you have this great way of like dumbing it down, which I think is amazing. So I just want to say thank you for dumbing it down for me.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, tools like that, they're incredible at what they do, but they're made by Google, and Google's got this googly interface to it, so it doesn't have quite the intuitive feel of like an Apple product, right? So you can kind of walk in and you don't realize, like with something like analytics, like you're walking into a database that's basically got this cover over top of it that will help you, like some charts and diagrams, but it's not going to tell you like, oh, go do this on your site now. And it takes a little bit of a tour guide approach to go through it and get the data you need, but it's all in there, which is
Mercer, the tour guide. That's kind of hot, actually. You should probably
Analytics tour guide.
The Analytics tour guide.
It's the new brand.
Okay,
I like it.
Please brand that and give me some money for it. Okay, so the cool thing about you, I have to say, is when we had our dinner, last time we had dinner was like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, it was great.
It was awesome. I had a great time.
Yep.
But here's what I learned about you. You're not just an analytical geek, because I really thought you were just this analytical geek dude. But you're not. You're not. You're like, oh, yeah, I went to Texas A&M, which is awesome, which I didn't even know that about you. And we're here in Austin, Texas, and, whoop, Texas A&M, right? And I'm like, oh, he's awesome. So I thought you were this total geek dude going to college. No, you owned a bar and, like, a newspaper or something.
I did.
Okay, but you do realize that's weird, right? Oh, yeah, I go to college and I own the bar and I own the newspaper in town. You know that's weird, right?
It was good. It was good times. Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't what everybody was doing in the college days.
What are you doing on Saturday night?
Exactly. Like I was working at the bar that I happened to own, which was great. But it was work, Actually, it's funny because there was a dark side to that I didn't realize would be there. Because when I first was doing it, it's like, oh, you start a business and you could, we had started an entertainment guide that was a monthly entertainment guide. It wasn't just like I showed up and had these businesses. We had this monthly entertainment guide, and then with sales growing, it moved into a weekly entertainment guide. And so we were distributing all across Bryan College Station weekly. And then from there, I had some funds where we could move into the bar, and had an opportunity to buy that. So we did. And when the cool part about that was owning a bar, right? I was like 22, it was early 20s. I don't remember
you got the
age.
ladies, right?
It was.
You got the ladies. You didn't. I mean, look, think about it. You have some guy like, hey, can I buy you a beer? Versus like, yeah, like I own that beer. I own
that beer.
The restaurant.
I own the pint
it
glass.
comes from, right. And the girl's like, let's see, him or
I wish it was that glamorous because and part of it is just because I probably got inside my own head an awful lot, as entrepreneurs do, because you're always like, oh, I want to build this bigger and better and whatever else. And I remember there was a time where somebody's like, you just need to chill out and relax. And I'm like, okay, what do I do to relax? Because if I go to a bar, somebody else's bar, I guarantee you my brain's going to be like, okay, what are those drink specials? Do they have something I don't have? How are the lights set up? Is a mic system different than mine? What are they doing on other promotions and specials? If I open up like some sort of entertainment rag of some sort, I'm going to be looking at the ads, who's advertising, and what their budgets are. It was constant. And I literally built this like business that ended up like trapping me in itself, believe it or not. And I totally got stressed out. Oh my God, I got so stressed out.
So what do you do when you're a bar owner, entertainment guide, and a college student to relax? That's a great question.
It is a great question. And I never found the answer to that. What I ended up doing, and part of this was because this is like the everything comes so easy in life fallacy. When you first start out in life and you have some easy wins, it's almost one of the worst things that can happen. But I was early 20s and I had some struggle, but I wouldn't say something that I would speak on stage about. Like it was like, hey, I tried some stuff and it was working. Like it was great. But I decided, because I pushed myself as I get further down this path, and I sort of trap myself in like, oh my gosh, like I'm a victim of my own success. I can't necessarily leave and stop all of these different things because I was intimately involved with all of them. So I didn't put systems in place and hadn't quite learned that lesson yet. And at the same time, it was doing something where I really enjoyed it, but it was stressing the crap out of me. And so what I ended up doing was saying, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with myself. Is this really where I want to be? I want to see mountains in the world. I want to see other things. College Station is great, but it's very flat. Okay,
and, hold on a second. College Station. The only thing there is College Station.
It's
just so you
there
know,
are some really great parts about BCS, about Bryan College Station. There are some really great.
Name one.
But I needed to move on.
Other than football. Whoop. No, let's be honest here. So entrepreneurship, I think it's great, and I think you're right. You said something. I think every entrepreneur always has that story, their first job or their first company. Their first thing, and if they do get successful in it, I think it's the worst thing to happen to them. And I mean that because then they think, oh, look at me. Like I can do it again. And it's actually the worst thing to happen versus like a lot of challenges and being able to kind of move through that. But I just think it's interesting that you're here in College Station and you're like, oh yeah, I'm a college student. Yeah, and I own a bar. Yeah, I own entertainment. Like Everyone else is like waiting jobs, and you're just I go to.
Yeah, it was cool. And I had a friend of mine who owned a series of furniture stores down there, and he came to me one day, and he was like, you need to be in a bigger pond. He's like, doing what you do, you shouldn't do it here. Which was nothing against the BCS area. He's like, this is just too small of an arena. Like, you should be out there doing something other stuff. And that's when I started looking at places like I ended up moving to Portland. And kind of answer the question of like, how do you relax? You shut everything down. I gave away everything I owned, and I drove to Portland with this theory in the back of my head that I would be able to, if I was really this good, I would rebuild my life again. If I'd figured out the secret, I would rebuild. And I was like, let's put it to the test.
The mindset of that, because talking about the win, right? Mm-hmm. And here you are, and you're like, I'm going to be able to be the ability to shut something down, or I call the breakup of a business, right? The break it up or break up the relationship, and then be able to say, I'm confident in myself that I can literally move anywhere and rebuild. That is so awesome. Did you just like come out of the womb like that? Like, how did that happen?
That's a great question. I don't know that I did. I think my parents were very different people. My dad was the corporate America kind of guy, like, hey, you go to school, you get your degree, and you're going to stay with, this company for 50 years. And that's sort of how he was raised. And at the time, that's what he was going through. That was his version of reality, right? For him, that was true. And my mom was sort of that serial entrepreneur. And, she had started a cleaning company. She sold vacuum cleaners door to door. Like, she was that type of person, always willing to try new things. And so I had these completely different versions of what life could be. Right. Mm-hmm. And I sort of kind of went with both a little bit, in that I wanted to do this, kind of stay consistent as much as I could and get the structure that corporate America would have. But I really liked the entrepreneurial ability to create your own systems and, play in this world. And so all the if I've had jobs, all the jobs I've ever had have been where there've been some sort of flexibility where I've got to control. And if it didn't work out, it's because I didn't get control. And, that's what entrepreneurs are about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But you talked about you had parents. One was corporate and one was, a salesperson. Sounds like an entrepreneurship. The fact that she did vacuum sales, cleaning business, she's truly entrepreneur. So where do you fall in that little realm? Because that's like left, right, huge swing there. Where do you fall in now? And where do you fall in now? What do you think?
Yeah, like I'm definitely the entrepreneur. And I enjoy that. That's my arena. That's the place that's where I grew up. That's where I like to live and stay. I've done both.
Structure though.
Oh yeah.
You're very structured.
Yeah. And that's what I think I got from the corporate stuff. Cause I tried the corporate stuff. It's funny, but like one of my favorite jokes in the entrepreneurial world is, as an entrepreneur, it's awesome because you get to pick, you get to work half days, right? You pick any 12 hours you want. And that's so true in the entrepreneurial world. A half day is not like, oh, I get to work half days. It's like, yeah, I'm working 12 hours today and I'm working 3 times as hard as I ever worked for anybody else, but I'm going to do it my own, right? It's me. It's my thing.
I went to bed last night at 3:30 a.m.
Right.
We're talking at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah, I've had all kinds of sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And we still do this. It's like we're psychotic, but we get something from this, and there's just a certain type of person that is attracted, I think, to that. Yeah. And the way to relax. I remember I actually.
How do you relax? Let's ask that question. How do you relax?
Here's how I did it when I first shut down the stuff, and this is just to answer that initial question as far as like the structure and everything. Is I actually got a job, and so after I shut down everything, I moved to Portland.
Stop. Hold on.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. All right, so Mercer just said, to relax, I got a job. I want to put that in perspective for a minute.
Actually,
because I
now that I hear it like
fully understand that. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, I got a corporate job, and I found it, there you go. I found it interesting that I could go home at 5. That was fascinating to me.
Absolutely agree. They were like, you've been here already like 45, 50 hours. It's starting to get overtime. You might, we need you to, and I'm like, what? Like, I'm being forced to go home? Like, I would never do that to myself.
What do I do when I go home?
It is so true. It is so true. And I got involved in some pretty big companies back in the day because I came in through the mortgage craze when that was going on. And at one point, I was with a really large mortgage company that was sponsoring the Super Bowl, literally sponsoring the Super Bowl 1 year. And the next year they were out of business. And it was just like, I had reached this regional status. I was running across 10 different states, helping out with things. And at the time I was like, cool, I've climbed far enough in the levels where I can't be affected. And now I've got this, my dad was right. Maybe it is the security in the corporate America and blah, blah, blah. And even that, right, wasn't good enough. And I'm like, you know what? There is no security. The security is me. I'm the security. I'm the one who determines where I'm paddling in this river, and I determine what river I'm going to paddle in. And that's what kind of pushed me back into the entrepreneurship thing.
Something that happened, because I had the same thing, except I had it that, oh yeah, this is great. Corporate life is so secure. And then one day I got fired when I was at literally the top sales. And it kind of had this, can I say this word, bitch slap feel?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? What? You know, so is there something that happened and you just kind of wake up one day and go, here we are. I mean, what was that? How did you get to that?
Well, for me, it was because the company literally shut down.
The company shut down.
The entire company closed its doors. So tens of thousands of people gone, right? And this happened a lot with a lot of mortgage companies. So I certainly wasn't unique in that arena.
But it definitely does a sting of go, and then you think, future, and then all of a sudden, literally, there's this big brick wall one day. Boom, your future's that's the feeling. That's what I got. When you're just going, okay, so that's how that happened. You're like, forget this. I'm my own paddle. I'm on the river by myself.
Yeah, I mean, because really, at the end of the day, that's the only security you have is you. But it's the most secure. I could be dropped in the middle of a desert. You're the exact same way, I know. You can be dropped in the middle of a desert with no resources at all. We will figure out how to sell something to somebody and make a living, right? We'll figure it out. We have that ability to build our own destiny. And to me, that helps, especially with entrepreneurship, because there's an element of risk that's involved with this, right? So that helps mitigate a lot of that, because I'm like, oh, you know what? What if it doesn't work out? Well, then it won't work out, and I'll figure out another way to make it work. That's just my instant answer to all of that. And chances are stuff, most of the time they work out. Sometimes they don't, for sure. But that's just the nature of the game, and you just figure out.
Would you say that you're a driver? People tell me all the time how you're such a driver, and I didn't sound like I woke up one day like I'm a driver. It's just because it's like what you said. If you drop me somewhere, I'm gonna sell something, because it's that drive. I'll figure it out. Let's do this. Let's just get in there and figure it out. I guess that's driven. I'm assuming. Has anyone ever told you that you're very driven, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're in the same boat. Good. We're in the same boat together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I told the guy, I was like, look, well, I'm not going to apologize for driving, because I also know that I kind of have, I don't know, maybe this is entrepreneur in me. I know that any moment now, shit could fall away. Anything could happen in the entrepreneurship world, and it's always this: things are changing, things are altering, things are whatever. So you have to constantly be up on it and alive and present. And I guess people call that driven. I don't think that's driven. I think it's being smart.
It is. For me, that's just how else would you be? Right? You have to keep moving forward, and you have to sort of never be satisfied. And there's an element, I get told, on these personality profiles, the first things that'll come back is oh, you're very ego driven. I'm like, damn right, I'm ego driven. You have to be. How could you go out into the world and because this is the most vulnerable from I think almost a personal standpoint, let alone business. Entrepreneurship is the most vulnerable you can be to the world, and say, look, I've created this. This is entirely me. I'm taking complete responsibility. Here's what we need. Here are the steps you should take in my business, or here's the things. Here's why you should buy them, or whatever else that you're doing. You have to have that element of ego to withstand the rejection, the massive rejection that will inevitably come your way. And that ego protects you from seeing that rejection. You just kind of okay, cool, they didn't want it, so what, next, moving on, right? And you just continue to build your business. And that's what people see as that driven mentality. And I guess in a way, like I said, for me, it's just being too obstinate to sit down and have a conversation with rejection. I don't have time for it. So it's okay, I'm just going to move forward and just keep doing my stuff. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to sit here and worry about it. I'm just going to, okay, it didn't work out. Let's figure out something that does.
So what's interesting about that, I'm listening to you, and I heard on the radio the other day, I listened to talk radio in the background, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy calls in to this show and says, Trump is so narcissistic. And he goes on his spiel. And I thought to myself, you've never been an entrepreneur. You've got to be narcissistic, there's an element of, but the word narcissistic has a particular meaning, but what you're talking about, you have to have that confidence to go out there. Think about doing real estate in freaking New York. Are you kidding me?
Right.
How many challenges just to put up a building? Oh my God. It's just out of control. Most people would stop at the first inch, much less go down 10 miles. So you have to have that resilience to it. I don't think it's narcissism. I think it's an amazing ability to be resilient and not let the negative affect you. Hear the negative, potentially maybe look at as feedback and then move forward.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's funny you say feedback. That's exactly how I classify that. Like everything's feedback, positive or negative, because just as easily you can get caught up in your own success, right? And I've talked to a lot of people who are successful and they don't know why they're successful. And those are the easy wins sometimes. Like sometimes you are right place, right time. And that's great and that's awesome. But do not think that's the rule. Right? If you don't know exactly what you did to get to that position, you can't replicate it. You don't have a formula. You were just lucky, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong. Great stuff. I'm lucky in the past, right? I'm hopefully lucky in the future, but I don't count. That's not my strategy, right? That's just like, oh, cool. Added bonus. I happened to be lucky when I did this plan that I had.
So what is your strategy now? Because you've gone through, we were talking about earlier, we have a condenser mic. He knew what a condenser mic was, and I didn't even know that you've had a background in voiceover work, which cracks me up. Something else you did.
Yeah.
Which is great. So what is your plan now? If you feel like a planning guy, like I'm pretty sure you got a plan. So what is the plan now?
Yeah, so for me, it's stages. I mean, right now we've built this agency. So we've got the analytics and optimization agency, and we've got a really, really good team that I'm pretty happy with. And they're 100% distributed. So I at one point was thinking, like, do we go the whole office route and, build this into the multi-million-dollar whatever? And I personally don't want to do that for my own benefit. Like, I don't want to have a commute. I don't want to sort of be beholden to myself again. I don't want to build that business that traps me in it as I did before, right, in my 20s. And so now it's, okay, we've got this, it's working. Let's make sure that we put a lot of operations and standard operating procedures and make sure everybody knows how to run this. I pull myself out of some of the day-to-day stuff, not all of it by any means. I still do a lot of the business development and getting on new clients for the trainings. But having other people fulfill at this point has been huge for me to be able to kind of free up my time. And now that I've got this freed up time and I've got a business that's essentially generating assets, I've got this, I've got assets now, really. It's just the first, it's like, okay, cool. This is supposed to be what it's doing, right?
Let me stop you for a second, because there is a moment when the entrepreneur goes from technician to actually business owner. It's like a phase, and you've learned the technician part. And what I mean by that is, like, you're the one in it all the time. You're the one making the pies, as E-Myth talked about. All right. And then you've been able to, because of your businesses in your 20s, you understand the importance of actually being a business owner and not the technician. And you've mentally made that shift, and then you're structurally making that shift. And that is how you actually win in business. And so I think it's cute when you say you have assets, because there is also the next phase when the business owner goes, I have assets.
There it is. It's like, wow, it worked just like the brochure said it would. Eventually.
That book I read 20 years ago, they're right. I now understand. Yeah. That's pretty interesting. I mean, you got to really take it in that moment, because that's probably phase 3 at that point, right? When when a business owner goes, versus like, I make money in my business, and I'm like, I have an asset. Yep. It gets a whole nother phase. So what is it like? What is it like over there, entrepreneur, to have assets as a business owner?
Yeah, it's a good feeling, I have to say. I mean, it's definitely not to the point where I could just walk away, go travel a year, come back, and then here's my bank account. Because eventually, I'm still involved somewhat. So I definitely don't want to paint it like that. But I'm on my way to having these systems where I'm not having to be involved as much, like you said, the technician, right? I'm not working on the same stuff that I was before. And so I can work at a higher level, more strategic level, as everybody else is helping with fulfillment and structure, and ultimately maybe teach them some strategy so I can offload even more of that. But as I'm doing that, I'm looking around at other opportunities, kind of going, okay, well, I've created this little asset. What if I could create another one? And what would that look like? And that's, I mean, I'm at this point in my life, I'm literally in this wide open investigation stage where I'm like, oh, this is maybe a juice bar franchise, or what does it look like to do, buying a website and that's already in there, but I could optimize it, right? That's what we do, right? So I could go buy an existing property and then maybe flip it around and fix it and then resell, or any other countless things that are out there as an entrepreneur. So I'm in that stage again where I kind of want to figure out, like, okay, what's my next step? I'm not really sure. Let's investigate everything, see what's out there. And at the same time, I'm learning. I'm making my own personal journey now to really dig into finances, and I'm a numbers guy, right? I'm very comfortable with numbers, but I'm definitely not the financial expert. And with all of the things that are out there and available in terms of financial vehicles that you can use as an entrepreneur, and modeling what some of the other families have done, right, over the generations, and kind of looking back, how could I apply that? Like, that's what I'm in now. So I'm looking at these different opportunities to create more assets. I mean, it's like I did it once, and I'm like, if I could do it again and again and again, and have 15 or 20 of these things, that would be awesome. And at the same time, what am I going to do with that? As all of those are producing additional capital, what do I do with that? And so I want to get smarter about my finances and the money. And again, it's not about savings or like let's invest in this mutual fund. It's beyond that. And that's what I'm really excited about too.
This is a great conversation. We don't talk about it a lot because financial planners, there's one aspect like saving and, I don't know, it's very boring. I was actually in one of my old lives, 22 years old, I actually worked for American Express Financial Advisors. And here I am, I'm like 22, don't know jack about jack. And I'm, over here like, talking to people in their 50s about their retirement. I'm like, come on. Like,
right.
Really? I don't understand. And all it is product selling. That's what I learned is like, all it is like you learn the products, literally like a hamburger, and then you figure out where they're at and where they need to go, and then you sell them the product. That's financial advising. There you go. That's the whole thing. And so I did that for about 2 years. And of course, they wanted to turn me into a financial advisor. I was just like an assistant. And when I realized that, it kind of like made me mad. You know what I mean? Like, really? This is all. So anyway, let's talk about how you're going to become a Rockefeller. And here's what you're doing. You're actually taking the current structure of the United States of America that we were built on entrepreneurship, and it was designed for capitalism. Yes, people, not socialism. Capitalism for us to make money and then use the current tax structure to make more money and leverage it. And nothing's wrong with that. You're not evil. You're called smart. So I just want to put that out there because a lot of people are like, oh, that's so horrible that they take advantage of the tax codes. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what the design's for. And I just have to say this one thing is that, talking about the Rockefeller, there is a book out there, The Rockefeller Habits. But there is a book that I actually read while I was going through my bankruptcy. So here I am, right, had this great business. It's taken away from me. I'm literally I got to go through bankruptcy. And it's one of those moments of like, that I'm smart. This should never happen to me. That's what was going on. Total ego. And I remember reading a book. I wrote this book, and I can't remember the title. I can't even remember the author. Somehow, one of those moments just landed in my lap, and it was about bankruptcy. It was kind of like this book, probably just right into me, talking about how bankruptcy, the law, it's a tax law really, right, about bankruptcy was designed, it was put into place for entrepreneurs. Like, it was designed for the country to be a capitalist society such that we can create something knowing that the potential could fail and then our lives are not ruined. Like in other countries, if you go in debt, like you could go to prison. No kidding. So it was designed for us. It was like this gift. No kidding. So when I read this book, it was like this weird moment of like, hey, you're now in like the big leagues because you went bankrupt and you actually have been given this gift in the United States of America to be able to say, yes, I did this, I failed, and I move on. So it's like this little gift, right? And so when right now people are talking negatively about Trump, how he went through bankruptcy, I'm like, it's because it's a gift, that when you go through something like that, it's this weird kind of gift that we're given in the capitalist society that we're in. So let's talk about how you can become a Rockefeller and how you're moving into that new space as a business owner.
Yeah, I think the biggest change when I was kind of going through that was like their example was the Rockefellers versus the Vanderbilts, right? And it was like, okay, both incredible families in the early century, made a ton and had all these assets from the original creators of that capital. And then you look at 100 years later, and there's really no Vanderbilts anymore that are have that wealth. That wealth that's all gone, and that typically is what happens. That's sort of the rule. Like after 2 or 3 generations, whatever the original wealth is has been flittered away, which kind of makes sense from a system standpoint because whatever was used to create the wealth is not what's been used to maintain it, and so it's they're just consuming it. That's all they know how to do, and so they do it. And they do it really well, and they get better and better at it as they go on, which is why it goes away. But with the Rockefellers, it seemed like they had more of that we're going to create this structure. We've got this entity. There's something, we're going to create this family bank that they essentially did. What is it? Cash flow banking, I think is the term. But going through and actually organizing their finances so that they could help each other climb their own ladders. And at the same time, this is the part I really love. If you were a Rockefeller who would be abusive to the system, like just take the money and not pay it back to the family and flitter it away or whatever else, then you couldn't come back. Like you couldn't come back to the trough and get more money. You were just, okay, you're out. But if you did pay it back, you got leveled up and you could have access to more capital now for bigger ventures because you proved yourself. And I personally like that structure of having a filter put in place where it keeps people from, just flittering away a generation's worth of wealth. And then not that I'm saying I've got the assets of a Rockefeller yet, but that's...
And I'm your friend. Hello.
Right,
I'm the friend of Mercer. Just want to put that out there that when he becomes Mercer Rockefeller, I'm his first friend. I'm just kidding.
The Mercer method. There we go.
Exactly.
That's what they'll call it. Yeah. But yeah, it really, I just want to take the lessons from it and generate probably a smaller scale, what they did and just the mindset of that and thinking about like, how do we keep this for generations? And that helps just from a mental standpoint, when I'm looking at the world, I'm not thinking about it in terms of tomorrow or this afternoon. I'm thinking about it in terms of generations going, okay, well, how do I prove an asset that will be around for a long time? And a lot of people I think long time is retirement. Like, oh, how do I get to retirement? And I'm like, okay, how do I get to
3 generations
and their retirement? But they're still generating value to the world, right? As opposed to, oh, well, they're just, living off the interest in a bank account somewhere.
You could just create a Clinton Foundation. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That was mean. I'm sorry. But actually, speaking of a rule of the tax code, so in the world of foundations, that's actually a great way to build wealth. Believe it or not, I remember one time I was in skiing in Tahoe, and we're on the lift, right? And there's this gorgeous house. I'm like, oh my God, stunning, right? It's on the mountain. Like, who actually builds on the mountain? Like, it's literally in the middle of everything. And I thought to myself, how did that happen? Yep. And there were people outside of it, and they looked like they were really wealthy. And so I asked the guy next to me, who kind of lives in the area, he goes, oh, that's the Hunts family. And I'm like, Hunts? He's like,
oh, like the ketchup.
Like ketchup.
The ketchup empire,
like,
the tomato empire.
Exactly, yeah. Like, there's huge money, right? So I'm like, oh, well, that's why they have a house on the mountain, right? It's not even, it's not on the side. It's like, oh, we'll just, do the helicopter. So talk about something that's really interesting. Like that kind of level of money is what you're talking about, because the reality is they all had to start somewhere, and they had a particular mindset for a future like that. And most of them don't just, oh, look at that, I made $100 million. That's not how it usually goes. They really have to strategize and think about it. And just go back to Trump for just a second. He talked about before how his dad did give him $1 million. But how many people, either in lottery or just maybe you probably heard about it, were given $1 million or even $400,000 and they lost it all on a business? The guy turned $1 million into $100 million. Psh, that's some great odds. What are the odds of that in Vegas? Hey, I'm going to give you $1 million. Bring you back 100. Sure, no problem.
Exactly, yeah.
You think about giving $1 million and turned it into $100 million. Wow. That's pretty impressive in the world of entrepreneurship and ROI over a period of time. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and I think for me that it's this mindset, and I don't know who the quote was. I think it was Einstein, but it was like, the level of thinking that brought you to where you are is not what's going to get you to the next stage. You have to level up your thinking, and that's why I'm kind of studying this stuff now. And again, not an expert at all, very beginning baby stages of this whole world. But now I know this world is there. I know these things exist. I see how other people are using them, and just to know that has changed the way I look at the world, so that now I can create something bigger and better for my own experience of it, right?
Where are you learning this? Because it's not something you find in the New York Times.
No, that's a great question. So Garrett Gunderson is a guy who wrote Killing Sacred Cows, financial guy, and he has this. Yeah, so his site Wealth Factory is where I'm picking up a lot of stuff right now. So I purchased a couple of their programs to kind of get into it, just the beginner stages of. No, I'm not spending thousands, but it's like I'm looking into it, going, okay, what is this? And going, wow, this is interesting. I didn't know this was a thing. How does this work? And they explain everything, and it's been absolutely worth the investment in both time and money for me, just to know that this is a thing. Right. And that these, and to think about like, well, how would I do that? And now again, I'm because my thinking is different. Like, and the best part about it is you can't go back. Like, I can't unthink these thoughts I've already thought about. I can't unlearn these because now I know this is there. And so now I look at, in January, I wasn't looking at my business as a potential asset. Right. I was like, okay, I'm going to build a business because I was too in it. And now because I've studied all of this, I've lifted myself. I've had to, in order to actually understand and be able to think like this, I had to lift myself up and look at it and go, okay, well, that's just a potential asset. What other things can I do that's a potential asset? And then, again, your thinking changes. Now, who knows if that's going to work, or if this will just be like, oh, this is right before I completely blew up my entire life and had to start over again. Like, who knows, right? But either way, I'll figure it out and move forward. Like,
well, when you change your thinking, your path changes. It's what you think about. Does change everything. I'm actually really surprised. So what happened in January? What was the trigger that said, like, let's look at this differently? Because I know. Here's what I know. It wasn't at the internet marketing party. Yeah. Where we drink beer and like hang out and like, yeah, you made $1 million. It's cool. So, and I love those guys.
But it is a good time.
It is a good time. No, I love them. I give them a hard time. But I know we weren't talking about that there.
You know what it was? There was an event. There's an event called Baby Bathwater that Michael Lovitch and Hollis Carter put on, and I met Garrett there at the first one they did in March, and that was my first introduction to like, oh, here's this stuff. Right. As really having an in-depth conversation. Like, I've heard about this, but I wasn't a part of it yet. And then when I was at Baby Bathwater, at least I wasn't in a position to really hear it. It's like, okay, well, I'm not making any money at all. So I'll come back to that later. Well, now I'm in this position where I am making money. And now I just happened to meet Garrett at this conference and kind of listen to some stuff he was talking about. And I was like, how do I, even simple stuff. My wife's from Japan. So I was like, well, let's go. How do I make, like, I was just joking. I was like, I would love to make Japan like a business expense. He's like, oh, we'll just go have your corporate meeting there. And I'm like, wow, like that's so simple and brilliant and possible. Because that's just what you do. Like and I just didn't think about it like that, and I'm not surrounding myself at the time. Wasn't surrounding myself with people who did think like that. And this isn't an abuse of a power. This is the rules. And this is the rules.
Yeah, this is the rules.
And you shouldn't be ignorant of the rules. Now you can choose to not go through that entire rule if you don't want to, but that's a choice. It's not.
But that's not how you win. I mean, that's not how you win in entrepreneurship. It is a new set of rules. It's not take home a W-2 and then put it in and then $100 a month to your IRA.
And the point is not to handicap yourself, right? And if you don't use the rule to the extent that it's there for you, you're choosing to handicap yourself instead, and you're choosing to limit yourself, which is fine. Just be aware that you're doing that. So if you can do this and you choose not to, just be aware that you're making that decision, and you're going to limit it. You're going to make things harder for yourself, which is totally cool. As long as you realize you're doing that, take responsibility for it. But that's kind of to your point earlier, you wouldn't blame somebody else who is taking, the quote unquote taking advantage. They're not taking advantage. They're just actually using the rule, like you said, as it was intended to be used.
They understand the rule, and so they're using the rule as it's designed.
And these rules can get complicated. So this is where, talk to a tax professional. Don't listen to a podcast and be like, oh, I'm going to go to Japan. And, talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about.
So let's talk about that for just a second, because that's a really key piece. I agree with you. Don't take financial advice right now and go to Japan for a business meeting. However, when you understand the concepts of the rules, then you can hire, and you can be more aware when you hire a tax attorney or a CPA or whoever you need, right? Yep. You can hire the best professionals because you can come from a place of understanding and making sure that they have read the rules. I can't tell you how many CPAs, just because they know CPA code doesn't mean that they understand it for business owners.
Right.
It's very different. And so when you become more educated, it's like an educated consumer. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to know everything about boats, but if you go out there and learn a little bit, when you go to the store to buy one, at least you kind of understand, oh, well, this versus that. You have some kind of comparison to it. I mean, shop is consumer. It's really consumer. But at the same time, this is about your wealth. And, I'm laughing because I listen to Fox Business all the time, Fox Business News, and I'm starting to get, I really think if my parents actually spent time with me when I was younger and really asked me a lot of questions about what I wanted to do, I probably would be on Wall Street, because that just looks so exciting to me, to be on the floor and like yelling and screaming all the time. I think I would have done really well. I don't know if that's true, but I think I
hear
would.
it's very quiet nowadays. It is
kind of quiet, but still, there's a lot of yelling and screaming, like go, go, go. I can see the addiction to it. You know what I mean? I can see the addiction to the drive. But the real smart puppies are the ones that understand what I call the other rules. You know, the rules of the wealthy, basically. The rules of the wealthy. We were talking about this. I think I sent Junko, your wife, the book about Be Your Own Banker. There's a book called Be Your Own Banker, and Don and I are going through it right now. I'm going through the concept's kind of interesting, but it's actually the particular concept that I'm going blank on his name. The billionaire dude from Iowa. Why am I going blank on his name?
Buffett, Warren Buffett.
Yeah, that guy, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. Whatever.
A few people have heard of him. That's fine.
Loser. Just kidding. So Buffett, that's what he does. Like, to be your own banker, and it's completely legit. It's completely. But if you mentioned that to the common person, they'd be like, "That's illegal," or "You can't do that." You know. So it's understanding the current rules, because I promise you, they're not out there on Fox Business News being talked about. You know what I mean? They're not. Or CNBC. They're just not.
That's exactly right. And, Buffett's an interesting character, too, because I think he's on the – I probably more financially like him in terms of the way he looks at things. Like, he's like, it's kind of unfair that I pay less taxes than my secretary does, right, from the tax code. But you notice that he pays less taxes than his secretary does. He didn't decide to pay more taxes because he paid less taxes because that's the current system. He doesn't think it's right, and that's totally cool if he wants to change it. But he still paid attention to the rules. Right, and he still used the rules that were laid out in front of him and said, wow, this game's, kind of not where I would want it to be, but he played it, and he paid less taxes than the secretary. Don't quote me exactly on that, but I think it was the story around that. But it was interesting.
This whole thing, just we're going to wrap it up, because I wanted to wrap it up on this, but the whole thing that I hear, and I want to get your take on this, wrapping it up, is that when you're an entrepreneur, you got to learn more than just one game. So you've really mastered analytics and Google Tag Manager, and Google, all those pieces of the pie in the world of Google Analytics. You've mastered that. You really are. You're a master. But you can't stop there. You're a great technician, but you've now had to move into managing and structuring and creating this business in phase 1 and phase 2, and now you're moving into what does it look like to create assets, and now you're going to master something else. So wrapping it up with everybody, one, how they get a hold of you. Well, let's go there. And then two, what can you say to people to wrap it up about you as an entrepreneur and winning in your life?
So to reach us, you can just go to seriouslysimplemarketing.com/thewin, and that'll take you to the page and kind of learn more about what we offer and ask any questions you like there. I think kind of wrapping it up, it really, from an entrepreneur standpoint, like, I've got amazing respect for entrepreneurs. I think they are the warriors in the arena, and not to make it like it's a violent thing. It's just that it takes guts to do this, and it's hard. It's so hard. And there's a certain type of person that just really loves that. And if that's you, and if you're listening to this and you're kind of like, and you're in that arena, and you're working and you're building and you're in there, like, that's just amazing. And as you progress from, again, I'm hopefully going to say this 20 years from now to the me that's here now, with that same rule. As you progress, you look at your thinking and figure out if you need to level up your thinking. Like, if what you're working on right now, like, for the last few years, my thinking was just fine. It was getting me where I need to go. Went from a freelance kind of guy to, we're going to hire people, to, okay, now I've got W-2 employees, and it's a real business all of a sudden. And I leveled up at that point. But my current thinking had gotten me just fine. Now I got to level up, and who knows how long from now I'll level up again. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is just making sure that it's not a destination, it's the journey, to kind of use the cliche, and just to just look at what you're doing, look at your thinking, figure out, okay, is my thinking good right now, or do I need to level up that thinking and just expose yourself to other things to do that? Like, that's how you do that. For me, that was the easiest answer. I'm not going to be an expert in all this financial stuff. I'm going to expose myself to this world that I do not understand so that I understand it enough to talk to somebody who I can pay to do it for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, that's really awesome. I remember, as you know, you and I have someone in common, the Brattons, and I remember at a recent mastermind, they were talking about it and how they did some restructuring or whatever. And they talked about the details of it, and they had a guy there. But the one thing that they said, that Tim said at the moment, that I thought, wow, he goes, hey, this year we finally turned a profit because they restructured some stuff, you know, whatever there was in the tech stuff. So you have to be able to take it to another level. God, this is so good. I'm taking so many notes. Thank you so much for being
happy
here.
to help. Thank you. It's an honor to be a part of the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just like, you know, you talk about your monthly, you have a workshop Wednesday, because I'm part of it.
We do. Yep, we do. So if you're interested in learning more about marketing and specifically around tracking it and optimizing it, for those of you who are online entrepreneurs, if you go over to our site, you'll see a thing called Workshop Wednesday. That's a program we do. It's free, where every Wednesday we have this webinar you can sign up for and watch live, and we go into deep dive, like here's how to use Analytics, or here's how to read these reports, or here's how to set this thing up in Tag Manager so you can track a certain button or your sales funnel or whatever it is. And we give those out, and then we basically let the replays sit there for a day, and then we put them in a members area, and that's how we monetize it. And so there's a monthly pass you could buy that you get access to all of the workshops we have ever done. So if you're just starting out in this and want to learn those tools, that's a really great program. A ton of value, and there's lots of support. We got the kind of Facebook group with all of your peers, and then we've got direct access to our team. So if you have a question over any of the techniques at all that we're covering, you just can go right to the private member support and get answers and move along your own journey of tracking and optimization.
Which is really powerful, right? I mean, you have to be able to track things to be able to grow things, like your money. You got to know how much money you have in the bank to be able to grow it, right? You got a dollar.
Can't measure what you can't manage what you can't measure, right? That's the saying. There you go.
You can't grow something you can't measure.
Yep.
That's the saying. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is The Win with Heather Havenwood, and you're listening to us on Renegade Nation and the Talk Network and a bunch of other places, and iHeartRadio and Google Play and iTunes and all the great ones. So thanks for being here. This is Heather Havenwood. You can check me out at heatherhavenwood.com.
Thank you for listening to The Win with Heather Havenwood. Interested in coaching with Heather? Go to heatherhavenwood.com and sign up for a business discovery consultation. Here is your free gift for listening. Get 3 audio chapters of Heather's book, Sexy Boss, How Women Empowerment is Changing the Rulebook, when you text the word sexy to 72000. Again, text the word sexy, that is SEXY, to 72000, and receive your 3 audiobook chapters. Number is good only in North America. For outside the USA, text SEXY to +1 323 457 2288. Text SEXY to +1 323 457 2288. Long distance charges may apply. Heather wants to hear from you. Questions you want answered on the show. Comments. Interview requests. Email media@sexybossinc.com or leave a private voicemail. 51 Boss is me. Again, the number is 512-677-4763. Check out all of Heather's sites. heatherhavenwood.com, sexybossinc.com, e2lab.com, datingtriggers.com. This is a Sexy Boss Wrap. This podcast is a copyright of Havenwood Worldwide, LLC.